So much to get to. Look who's here, Norah O'Donnell. Albeit standing at the desk, because camera two, let's just be honest, that's a tough angle. So I respect it, and I'll just work on my posture here, Norah. The idea...
You did offer me a chair. Thank you for letting me.
You're welcome. The descriptive, the presidential, so much has been made of this. And against this backdrop, I know you guys had Mark Leibovich on from the New York Times this morning. He stopped by, and it struck me that it seems at times that Donald Trump is running against the Republican Party as much as he's running against the Democrats as the GOP presumptive nominee. When he speaks, though, about the need to be presidential when the time comes, do you think he doesn't believe that that time is now? And does it really speak to the disconnect that is laying itself plain?
Well, that has been part of the fascinating thing of covering this campaign, right? Which is, he has broken every rule in the playbook, and he has won the nomination, and he rightly points out with more votes than any other Republican in a primary. He has managed to walk into the general election with the least organization, the least money of any major nominee in history. How do you win? And so that has raised questions. Does he need to be more presidential? Does he need to change his campaign? Does firing the campaign manager? Who's advising him? So all those questions are relevant. It just was interesting. I think we all know that sometimes our spouses can be some of our most influential advisors, and his children clearly are. And so I asked, they're begging you. You've said they're begging you to be more presidential. What did they mean? And he dodged a bit on that question, and he said being presidential is easier than what he has to do every day. So he's not spoken about what that is, but I think clearly his children are trying to push him to win this and make sure that they have the resources to win this, to put together the business plan to win the election, that he can't just do it by giving speeches and interviews. There actually has to be an infrastructure to support that nominee.
And he did what he's done in days previous, invoking his past GOP primary successes, the landslide in New Hampshire where I spent no money. He doesn't need fundraising. Again, he called the money that Hillary Clinton is raising blood money. And then he existed, as he often does, in two parts of the same issue, where he said, I spend my time raising money for the party. And then he went on to say to you 2 sentences later, I don't want to devote my life to raising money for the party. But that is a fundamental part of being the presumptive nominee of your party in an election year. Again, it speaks to, it seems that he doesn't believe it's his job.
So in preparation for this interview, I spoke to a number of Republicans who've been involved in presidential campaigns and presidential politics, sources of mine. One very senior Republican who's worked on several campaigns said to me, Donald Trump is planning to use the RNC ground game. One of the questions is what faith and what does he point to as evidence that he should put faith in that RNC ground game? It was one of the failures of the Romney campaign, that the RNC ground game was not very good. The Romney campaign ground game was not very good.
The autopsy following 2012 suggested that Donald Trump is exactly the sort of candidate they should not put forward.
Well, yeah, but I mean, relying just on the party apparatus then to turn out the vote, it is an issue. I mean, I've covered House and Senate campaigns forever. You have to turn out the vote. A primary race is a very, very different thing because that is the party faithful. Those are the most energized people. It's a teeny little sliver of the electorate. In order to win an election, you have to get people to the polls who have 9 to 7 jobs, who have a job and then have to pick up their kids and are really busy, who voting is, they don't have a couple hours to stand in line. You have to turn those people out and get them to the polls, people who might be your supporters but don't have the time. And so it does matter. Infrastructure in the ground game does matter in terms of that. That's why the evangelical meeting was very key yesterday. I don't think it got a lot of the attention because of the back and forth on the economy. But again, some of the smartest people I know in Republican politics have said to me, the real problem that Donald Trump has is with evangelicals. Evangelicals are people that turn out to the polls, and the last Wall Street Journal poll showed that he was running about 40–50% approval rating. It needs to be at like 70% approval rating. So that is key, that he meets with them. It is true that he did better than some of his Republican counterparts in the primary. Can he do that and get them to turn out the vote? So all these little pieces of demographics that he has to turn out, evangelicals, white women, Hispanics, those will all be part of the puzzle that he has to work on.
So if this is the pivot that we're talking about, he likes to, again, discuss things in terms of business. Then in that comparison, then voters are consumers. Does he realize that he needs more people coming out and buying what he's selling?
Yeah, I think so. I do. But he points to the size of his rallies. He points still to the ratings, you know, the people turning out at these rallies. But I think, again, this campaign is becoming very focused right now. We're a month away from the conventions. There will be more substance. There will be more policy. We saw as Secretary Clinton narrows her focus on Donald Trump, he's going to do that today in a major speech that I know you're going to carry here on CBSN. His advisors told me that it's going to be less about scandal. I say that because sometimes, you know, as you know, Mr. Trump decides to do what he wants to do.
Yep.
But they said it's going to be less about scandal, and I think what they were alluding to is some of the reports that he wanted to focus on Whitewater. He wanted to focus on some of the more scandalous things that may have happened during the previous Clinton administration.
To your point then, your insights, great as they are, will hold for at least 45 more minutes, and then we may have to update for the West Coast. So
I hope I do. Thank you. Yeah, I do. All of what none of this is my personal opinion. What I try to do is I was working the phones. My producers are sitting right over here. They kept saying we got to go, Norah, and I was on the phone talking to everybody, doing all my reporting, trying to.
That's crack work from you. The nameless and the faceless over here, but they are terrific.
You know, my knowledge comes from the many sources that I talk to that inform my reporting.
Well, certainly time's a wasting for this Trump campaign, and as we look ahead to his comments today, we thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And the chairs they're not all bad. Don't be scared next time. Don't be scared.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.